Hey YouTube, I'm back with another bodybuilding video for you. But first, we're going to play a wonderful game called Who is My Daddy and What Does He Do?
Hey guys, what's up? It's the Tominator here. Today I wanted to go back and do another Olympia review. This time we're going to be talking about the 1994 Mr. Olympia. And these were the top three guys this year: Kevin Levrone, Shawn Ray, and Dorian Yates. This show proved to be very competitive and fairly controversial because this was the year, I'm sure many of you are aware, when the reigning champ Dorian Yates first tore his bicep, leaving him with a major chink in his armor. And meanwhile, Shawn Ray came in arguably at his all-time best, and guys like Kevin Levrone, Paul Dillette, and Aaron Baker were no slouches either, so the lineup was definitely stacked, and Dorian had his work cut out for him. At the end of the day, when the dust settled and all was said and done, Dorian did walk away with his third consecutive Olympia title, and Shawn Ray grudgingly had to accept that runner-up spot. Like I said, it was a close-fought contest packed with quality talent, and it's definitely worth taking another look at, so let's check it out. I've got about 30 side-by-side picture comparisons to go through, so this one might run a little long, but I'll try to keep it moving at a brisk pace. And like usual, we're going to break it down pose by pose to see who really deserved the Sandow. Now, as you can see from this first black and white photo, it really was like comparing apples to oranges. On the one hand, you have the mass, thickness, and density of Dorian Yates, and on the other, you've got the shape, symmetry, and aesthetics of Shawn Ray. Two completely different animals, so it's tough to compare them directly, and ultimately your decision is going to be pretty subjective depending on what attributes you value more in a bodybuilder. For my money, Shawn looks 100 times better here standing in this front relaxed pose. Dorian looks like one of those big juiced up roid monkeys you see lumbering around in the gym with their arms splayed out to the sides and grunting on every rep and shit. I mean, he honestly looks more suited for a WWE wrestling ring than a bodybuilding stage. Sure, he's big and beefy, but he's also bloated and looks uncharacteristically smooth. Shawn, on the other hand, looks every bit the bodybuilding champion, with better detail, lines, proportions, and a far more appealing-looking physique. Even if you're a big Dorian Yates fan, I really don't see how you could say Dorian looks better here. And here we've got a zoomed-out shot of the first call-out, and once again, I think Shawn looks the most refined and shapely out of all these guys. So Levrone would probably be my choice for second, and then Paul Dillette in third, with Dorian taking an unimpressive 4 out of 6. Because even though he's got that impressive width, and he certainly looks better than in the first pick we just saw, all three of these guys have more streamlined waist, better abs and quads. So Dorian, let's face it, he's just not very good in the front relaxed pose. And here, once again, the polish and professionalism of Shawn Ray really takes the cake. His quads, midsection, and chest, I'd say, are overall the best in the shot. And, his overall lines and flow are pretty hard to beat in this position. So Ray takes the front relaxed pose easily. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find any of the side or rear relaxed poses, so let's jump right into the mandatories. First up, we got the front double bi, and I know it's hard to see from this zoomed out pic, but nonetheless, my eyes are drawn immediately to Shawn Ray for this epic vacuum. It really makes him stand out from the rest of the lineup, and to me, he's once again the most impressive guy on the stage. Paul Dillette would probably be second because his abs look really good, the leg looks good here. They must have snapped the pic at a very favorable time because he's a crappy poser, we all know. But anyway, here's a zoomed in look, and Ray's winning this one quite handily. Dorian's arms are basically the same size as his, and Shawn's giving up a lot of mass, so Dorian's obviously wider through the torso and bigger through the legs. So in my mind, his proportions are a little off. And on the plus side, the bicep tear is not really that noticeable in this shot, but then again, his waist is significantly blockier than Ray's here. And the ability to hit a vacuum is literally a lost art nowadays, and it's a shame because it really helps augment upper body fullness. I mean, look how well Ray measures up through the lats and chest compared to Dorian, a substantially larger bodybuilder. So that's the power of posing, to be able to create the illusion that you're bigger and better than you really are, and to show off your physique to the fullest, which is what Shawn's doing here. And here I spliced together another comparison from their individual prejudging routines, and once again it's going to Ray by a country mile. That torn left biceps really hurting Yates here, as is the aforementioned bloated waist, and he's simply getting exploited by a much more symmetrical and tapered bodybuilder. The front double bicep was never a very strong pose for Dorian though, and a lot of guys actually beat him in it, so let's not dwell on this one, let's move on. And here we have the front lat spread, and this is a very unflattering angle for Dorian. he's not facing the camera, and so he isn't being properly showcased. That's not his fault. It's just that he was obviously displaying to the judges down here, and it was bad timing with the pick. But Shawn actually looks pretty solid here, and Kevin as well. If I didn't know better and I was just judging off this one photo, I'd probably give it to Shawn or Kevin and put Yates in third. But thankfully, I know better than that, and I'm sure most of you watching do as well. Anyway, here yet again, Yates is not facing head-on. Levrone, however, looks amazing here. I like him better than Ray, even because he's got that amazing X-frame with the wide flaring lats, the really broad, well-developed shoulders. His arms are huge. The quad sweep is terrific. So Shawn looks good. He looks solid, but these guys here are just kind of a step above, and they're frankly just dwarfing him, right, and making him look a little bit small. So here we have a fair shot of Yates hitting the pose head on, and it's just domination. He's the best to ever hit it, in my reckoning, and this year was no exception, so Shawn's getting dusted. He simply can't hang with all this width. I gotta admit, I'd still personally rather look like Ray, because his body's just much more shapely and aesthetically appealing. But on a bodybuilding stage, in a pose like the lat spread, size and thickness trump aesthetics. So this is a pose that you really have to fill out to nail, and Dorian's doing that, whereas Shawn is not. So let's move on. The side chest here is close. That is, of course, unless you factor in Levrone, who's just killing both these guys. Now look, I know I said in my last video of the 1995 Mr. Olympia that Dorian was edging him out in the side chest pose, and a lot of you guys were calling bullshit and saying I was an idiot. And maybe, but keep in mind that was purely based off the two photos I had to go by. And Kevin did not look as good as he does here. He wasn't as defined, he didn't look as full. So no guys, I don't think Dorian is better in the side chest than Levrone, okay? Don't get it twisted. If Kevin looked this good in the 95 pics, I would have given it to him in a heartbeat. But anyway, this video is focusing on Ray and Yates, so between these two here, it's a tough call. Because on the one hand, yeah, Dorian has a big size advantage, but Ray has better muscle bellies and fullness. That's especially evident here in the hamstring sweep, because Dorian basically doesn't have one, although he does have this really defined line between the split between the hamstring and the quads, whereas Shawn looks a little bit soft and watery. Then again, I like the shape of Shawn's chest here more than Dorian's, and his far arm just looks a million times better, but that could it's probably mostly due to the angle, the way he's opening up more. So let's check out another pic where both guys are more lined up. See, here I like the width through the upper body of Yates more. Unlike the last pic, he's really dwarfing Shawn in this one, as he should be. So even though I still like Shawn's shape more, especially in the chest and arms, Dorian's just so much wider through the chest and obviously bigger overall, and he just looks more impressive to me here. Plus, even though his hamstring sweep kind of sucks, his lower body conditioning looks superior here from the side compared to Ray. So Levrone's still taking this pose by a fair margin, even though he doesn't look quite as amazing as he did in that last shot. But between these two guys here on the right, I'm giving the slight edge to Dorian. Here, once again, you can see what I'm talking about. Dorian's bigger, harder, and drier. So even though Ray has that superior shape and fullness, I've got to go with Yates. In the back double bicep, both guys look outstanding. Shawn Ray actually measures up pretty well here because, while he's never going to match the thickness and density that Dorian brings, he's got better arms. He's got a more conditioned lower body, and he's got probably better detail and separation overall. I mean, look at the shoulders, for instance. You can clearly see all three heads of the delt very neatly separated, whereas with Dorian, that's not really as apparent, right? And Shawn's upper traps also look more defined here. And I would say that his glutes and hams are better. He's got a better glute-ham tie-in. Even though his calves aren't nearly as big as these hulking cows over here, they're still very well shaped. They're very well developed and shapely, right? So don't get me wrong, nobody's beating Dorian in the back department. His lats, his lower traps, his lower back, and just his overall size and thickness was unmatched at this time. And even to this day, Ronnie, I'd say, is the only guy who's really reached this level. But unlike Levrone in 95, I feel like Shawn's back is more complete and comes closer to Dorian's, making this pose much more competitive. Man, call me crazy, but I actually lean towards Shawn Ray in this one because he's simply more complete. Even though he's much smaller, I feel like his total development is a bit better, and his arms certainly are way better, relatively speaking. Well, not even relatively, like they're outright better than Dorian's here in this picture, and he's given up so much mass compared to this guy, so that's really a big knock against Yates. It's not just about the back, right? You got to factor in the arms heavily in a double biceps pose, right? And Dorian is easily the worst in this frame in that regard. So I feel like Shawn's back can hold its own next to Dorian in this pose, not in terms of the size or thickness, mind you, but certainly in terms of detail. So yeah, I feel that overall Shawn is more complete in the back double bi, and I'm giving it to him by a hair, because Dorian's still extremely strong here, and I can definitely see why you would give it to him. But hey, this is my video, and I'm pitching my case for Ray in this pose for all the reasons I just mentioned. As for Christmas trees, though, Dorian's not to be beaten. Shawn looks fantastic here as well. I actually think his lower body from the back is superior in this contest, but Dorian's lower back is just on a whole other level. And that's especially evident in this picture right here, just how much better Yates is in that region. Shawn's fantastic too, but Dorian's just better, and that's pretty much the bottom line here. The only guy who can really hang with this in my mind is Ronnie, so Dorian takes this one. He also demolishes everybody in this pose too, the rear lat spread. So Shawn looks good, but he's just given up too much size and width compared to these two behemoths over here. And while Levrone measures up well in terms of width next to Yates, he's given up too much thickness. So the man in the middle is running away with it. It's not even close. Now, I wanted to show you a rear relax comparison, but couldn't find any such pic of Dorian, so we'll have to make do with another lat spread. Not a fair comparison, but just wanted to showcase Ray because he really looks tremendous here. I mean, look at Samir Banu just admiring, and this dude's like, "Hey man, don't mess with Ray. He's mine." And Nasser, it's funny to see these guys in the background. Anyway, so Shawn just has that level of polish you rarely ever witness. But then again, Dorian just steamrolls him with that, overpowering width and mass. So that's what I meant at the beginning of the video when I said it's like apples versus oranges. Next, we've got the side tricep, and this is a terrible shot for Dorian. I mean, he's facing away too much, and that gut looks all out of whack. Frankly, he looks horrible. He looks like a fat guy who just climbed a flight of stairs and is out of breath. So this should never happen on stage. I don't care at what point they snapped a pic. You should never look this bad, even from a crappy angle. You got to keep it together. And Shawn's doing that. He pretty much always does. He's the most defined guy in this pic, especially in the midsection. But make no mistake, Levrone's taken this pose in this particular comparison. Now, I couldn't find a better picture of them hitting it together, but if you copy and paste a good picture of Yates, he's suddenly much more competitive. So I tried to make this to scale. It might be a little off, but regardless, he's dwarfing Ray, and that's not an illusion as we've seen from some of the other pics. I would still give Kevin the nod, but Dorian, I'd say, is easily beating Shawn on sheer size. Ray looks amazing on his own, but he's simply given up too much mass compared to these two beasts over here. He'd probably need around another, 10 or 20 pounds to really be able to take this pose. And even then, it's hard to beat Kevin. Or these are two of the best to ever hit the side triceps. So Shawn looks great as well. But I'd say that I'd put him in third, probably. In the ab and thigh, though, I mean, come on. This is Ray's pose. You can't tell me he doesn't look better in this. I know some people will definitely argue that Dorian's winning it because he's harder or he's bigger. And that's what she said. Or his V-taper is better. I get it. I can see those points. But can you not appreciate the immense aesthetic superiority of the guy on the right here? I mean, are you blind to the beauty of a bodybuilding physique? It's not all just about mass and conditioning, guys. I'm willing to concede that Dorian wins certain poses like the lat spreads by virtue of his size and density and whatnot, but the ab and thigh has always been more suited for aesthetic guys with tight waistlines rather than blocky mass monsters, okay? So, I'm sorry, I don't care if Louis Marco says Dorian looks better in this pose. As far as I'm concerned, he's flat out wrong, and I strongly, strongly disagree with anyone who says otherwise. Needless to say, I give this pose to Ray by a landslide. In my eyes, he's got the best ab and thigh of all time, and while Dorian just may well be the best true mass monster to ever do it, he's not even in the same league as Shawn in this one. And finally, we come to the most muscular. Here again, Dorian is weak. His arms and delts just never look good in this pose, so he tends to suffer next to guys with better muscle bellies like Ray. I mean, Shawn not only looks better in this pose, but he's beating him in virtually every body part from this angle as well. Just pick one muscle where Yates looks better. I don't see one. Now, here you might say his chest measures up well, and certainly his ridiculous cows here are unbeatable, but other than that, Shawn's mopping the floor with him. He's got vastly superior arms, rounder delts, a more striated chest, better abs, more separated and feathered quads. It's not even close. And he can also hit the crab pose better. So Dorian looks decent in this pose some years, but no way can he match Shawn in the legs or arm department. He would obviously outmass him though, and through the chest and traps, he'd probably look a little bit better due to that extra width. But I couldn't find even a single pic of Dorian in the crab, so either he didn't hit it this year, or he didn't look impressive enough in it to warrant a photo. So that's it for the mandatories. I've just got a couple more miscellaneous pics I want to share, like these here from the pose down, where once again, Shawn looks more polished. But how about the Maryland Muscle Machine just crushing him with these boulders and guns over here? Kevin pretty much dominates every time he hits this trademark most muscular. But anyway, another one from the pose down where, again, Shawn stands out to me as the clear front runner. He's got so much quality from head to toe that Yates is sorely lacking. I mean, look how mediocre his arms are in this pose. I mean, he's intentionally showing off his arm, and he's just got nothing. And his quads here also look pretty bad, so come on. I mean, this might not be a fair comparison per se, as they're both hitting different poses, but, I mean, Shawn's physique from the front is on another level. And here's a couple pics that were just too good not to include. Have you ever seen a better midsection than this right here? I can't think of one. I mean, he's basically taken a page from Bob Paris's playbook and doing him one better because he's got more mass and rounder muscles to work with. So to me, this is pretty much aesthetic perfection. Even Flex Wheeler's got nothing on this. And look, he even manages to make the most muscular aesthetic. And his this kneeling double bicep over here is like something out of a painting or comic book. I mean, it's so amazing it doesn't even look real. Is this a human being or a Greek god we're looking at? But of course, well, you got to give Dorian a fair shake too, so here's a couple of the best shots I could find from his routine, and yeah, he looks incredible in his own right. That back is always going to be the best in any show he enters, no question. He's even managing to look relatively aesthetic, so kudos to him for at least making an effort. Because a lot of mass monsters seem to get lazy and treat their posing as an afterthought. So, they get up there, they hit the same couple of poses 2 or 3 times and call it a day. So I do have to respect and commend Dorian for mixing it up here and showing off his greatest features in a more original fashion. However, as we all know, there can only be one champ, and Dorian prevailed once again. My final verdict may be a little contentious, but after viewing all these pictures and rewatching the video footage available on YouTube, I've got to say I think Ray deserved this one. Dorian was still incredible and dominated a few poses, but Ray was more complete. He had better shape, symmetry, proportion, and even conditioning. The bottom line is that he was virtually flawless, and I think that's one thing the judges need to consider more, that it's not just about who's the biggest and most ripped, but who has the least number of flaws. In Dorian's case, he had that torn bicep, and even with the torn bicep notwithstanding, his arms were subpar. He had a bloated waist, soft glutes, poor hamstring sweep, and poorly separated quads. In Shawn's case, the only real thing you can pick apart on him was that he was too small. But when you look at a picture like this, who in the hell would rather look like Dorian than Shawn? I realize that standing relaxed doesn't count in bodybuilding, but maybe it should. Why should we crown a guy with a blocky waist and mediocre arms just because he's bigger and has a better back and calves? It's quality over quantity, right? That's why Phil Heath keeps winning these days, because he's the most complete guy on stage every time. And Shawn Ray was the most complete guy on the stage in this show, so in my mind, the judges messed up this time. Now, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say Ray was robbed or anything, because Dorian still looked really good, but I think he should have placed 2nd or 3rd this year. He was just too flawed, and he wasn't at his best. He wasn't as good or as sharp as he was in 93 or 95, so I don't believe Dorian Yates at 80 or 90%, or whatever you want to call this, is good enough to beat Shawn Ray at basically 100%. So that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below who you think should have won and why. Please try to keep it, try to give an explanation. Don't just say, Dorian won, you're an idiot. I'm just going to start blocking stupid trolling comments like that, okay? We don't need that kind of negativity on this channel. But anyway, that's it for this one. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more. And as always, I'm the Tominator signing off. I'll be back.